Hey guys, welcome back. Energy Physio. We just finished up talking a little bit about this idea of therapeutic exercise versus strength and conditioning and how all that fits into rehab. And we start kind of transitioning into this strength and conditioning model. This really kind of brings up the idea of load versus capacity. And we can think about this at the muscular level. We can certainly think about this at the movement level. So, as we restore joint capacity and muscle capacity and we start to use our therapeutic exercise to retrain muscles to move and work correctly, as we start transitioning back into sport, it's really got to be a little more tailored towards strength and conditioning. And here's why. We're just going to say movement in general. A person has a certain movement capacity available to them that can tolerate a certain load, right? So we're going to say that these things are relatively equal. Now, if we want to increase capacity, we're going to increase load just a little bit, and over time, that's going to kind of drag capacity with it. So if we're thinking about something like a bench press, obviously you have a 1 rep max. There's only so much you can do. But if you train at a load repeatedly a little higher than, let's say, your 10 rep max, then your 1 rep max goes up. So you started with the capacity of you can bench press 150 pounds. We drop down, we do 4 sets of 10 at 120 pounds. Now all of a sudden, 4 weeks later, your 1 rep max is 180 pounds. You've increased load slowly over time and repeatedly over time. And in doing that, you've challenged not only load, but you have caused capacity to go up. And the same thing is true when we think about an injured athlete. So let's say this is full sport activity. The body can handle this amount of capacity, this amount of load. But then let's say the athlete gets injured. And in order to nurse this injury back to health, we've got to cut the load down, right? We can't continuously load this dysfunctional system that's injured and expect it to get any better. So we've got an injury. Now we've got to decrease load down to this level. Now what happens is when you have to decrease load down because of pain or injury, capacity is going to follow that. Okay? If you don't sustain the load level at the same level as your capacity is going to come down. So in the case of injury, now our load has had to decrease so we can restore this injury. But now as a result, our capacity has also decreased. And this is why so many times we get people who feel better really quickly and they jump out of rehab straight back into some type of sport or high level activity and they get injured really quickly because they jumped out of rehab and their load level was here and their capacity level was here, and then they go back and they play at the level that they used to have here, and now their load has increased way above capacity. Like we said, when you take load well beyond your capacity, you're going to get injured. That's where injury happens. So now, here's where strength and conditioning really starts to play a big role in the rehab process, is this patient has moved from injury. So if we remember our I3 model of incomplete mechanics, incident, so this is like the pain level, and then injury. Let's just say we had an injury. This person's capacity and load went way down. But through the rehab model, we were able to shift them back to the incidence level, and then we were able to shift them back to this incomplete mechanics model, and then we've gotten this person completely well. We've improved their functional movement capacity because we have restored their incomplete mechanics. So we're sending this person back to sport or back to training in a position where their risk of injury is way, way down. But same thing applies. If we throw them back in, their capacity's down here. If we throw them back in with a really high load, good chance they're going to get injured again. So this is where strength and conditioning comes in, and where good programming can challenge the capacity with just a little extra load over a long period of time. And so as load demand increases over time, capacity comes up with it. And we continually increase load slowly over time and take capacity with it. And now 6, 8, 12 weeks down the road, we consistently challenged load slightly over the athlete's capacity. And now their capacity and their load tolerance are the same, back to this level of return to sport. Okay, we can't think that once this person's pain is gone, we can send them straight back to sport, because now their load capacity and movement capacity are so far decreased from where they started, they need a very slow rebuilding process. So this idea, when we shift in from the rehab model into strength and conditioning, this is about a very detailed programming that allows the athlete to load appropriately and load in ways that challenge their system to increase their capacity. So when they return to sport, we're not really having to think too much about another upset or re-injuring the problem, because we've been really diligent about understanding this level's capacity and challenging them just beyond that slowly over time. This athlete returns to sport with no problems. So this is how we're fitting in strength and conditioning into our rehab model, especially for our active adults and our athletes, by understanding how to make somebody well by taking them all the way out of this incomplete mechanics model into good functional movement, and then slowly challenging their load and capacity over time to get them back to whatever their goal activity is. See you later.